There we go.
Welcome to MalcolmPresents.com, and it's Syd and Malcolm. Of course, I'm Malcolm, and on to my left is Syd. Hey, Syd, how you doing?
Greetings and salutations. I'm doing fine. Had a lot of activities last couple of weeks. One of my daughters is going to have a child in September.
Oh, not so tough.
Have another grandbaby. That's exciting. And it's her second. And our overall, six. We had one that passed at birth. It would have been seven, but we will have six. So very exciting.
Well, that's great.
Thank you. And we'll probably be going out to Portland, Oregon when she's ready to give birth.
Ah,
So, but I do intend on going out to California in the next couple of weeks. Maybe the middle of April, go out there for Passover.
yeah, but you go out to San Francisco, right?
I do. And you were down in
Los
Orange
Angeles.
County area.
No, not Orange County, please. That's
Sherman Oaks.
yeah, too right wing. I'm in San Fernando Valley.
Ooh, sounds beautiful, by the way.
Well, I remember when I lived out here. I've lived out here 45 years already from New York.
That's a long time.
That's
And
a long time.
I will tell you that I was stationed in California 50 years ago.
Ah,
I was stationed at Travis Air Force Base in 1971. And that's when I determined that if I would have children and they were smart, they would go to Stanford. And I came back to my girlfriend at that time, who became my wife. I said, I saw the most beautiful school in the history of schools, Stanford University in Palo Alto, California. And I had gone there just because the Grateful Dead had their start in Palo Alto, Menlo Park. So I wanted to see that area because I'm a very big Deadhead in 1971, as I still am now in 2022. And we got to, I spent a little time on the Stanford campus, and being someone from Brooklyn College, from the CCNY City College system, which had no campus, Stanford is known for their campus, and it was fabulous.
I went to CCNY. We had a campus. It was called Harlem.
Oh yeah, that was your campus, but that was East Harlem where you were.
No, actually, it was West Harlem.
No, CCNY. Oh yeah, CCNY is East Harlem. Actually, it is Center Harlem because it goes up Fifth Avenue, right?
No. I think you're talking. You might be talking. There's a city downtown, which is
No, CCNY. Isn't that around Fifth Avenue and 140th Street?
Amsterdam Avenue, Amsterdam Broadway.
Oh, Amsterdam. Okay.
And
I was at that campus 3 years ago. One of my good friends became the president of CCNY and was so for a couple of years, and she left. But she was an old buddy of mine from my science life. She was very involved in monoclonal antibody research, DNA genetics, cancer research, which I was involved with. And she was a genius, Lisa Stayana Koiko from Brooklyn. And she herself went to Brooklyn College. And she did very well for herself. But she loved being president of CCNY when she was there. But going back to Stanford, oh my God, there was nothing else to say. And I was blessed. Two of my kids were pretty smart. I've got a smart wife. And my oldest and youngest daughters both went to Stanford.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah.
That's where my money went, by the way.
And it's still going.
No.
I have two sons. One went to UC, University of California at Santa Barbara.
Oh, great school.
Which I love the location. As they said, if I knew about it then, when I went to college, I'd probably still be going 45 years later. I mean, it's right on the ocean. And then
I've been to the campus. It's fabulous.
And they went Isla Verde is there's a little complex right off campus where the kids stay, and it reminded me of Fire Island. I mean, we go
Wow.
there, all the kids are in flip-flops, on skateboards, bicycles.
Yeah, I mean, of all the campuses, and my kids went to great schools. My son Ryan went to Columbia, which is in the center of Harlem, and there was really not a campus. It's 8 blocks by 8 blocks, and it's all buildings. And
It's like NYU.
yeah,
The only,
and
the only advantage of NYU, it's in the village, the West
right.
Village.
And one of my other kids went to school in the village. She went to Cooper Union,
Oh, yeah.
which is downtown Bleecker Street, 7th. She actually lived around the corner from the school for 4 years in the same house that Jack Kerouac lived in, 132 East 7th Street.
I thought he lived in his car.
No, he was pretty wealthy. He made a lot of money on his books, but he did live in her building maybe 30 years before.
Yeah.
But my son Dylan had a great college experience at Northwestern. That was a fabulous college campus up in Evanston, Illinois. And it was funny because he wanted to be an engineer, and we looked at two schools next to each other in the same area, so to speak, Northwestern and Purdue. And we went to Northwestern first. And when we heard the president of the school say that every kid the year before got a job or got into graduate school, we turned to our son and said, you know what? We don't have to look at Purdue. You're going to go to Northwestern. That's where he went.
Well, my college experience was waking up at 6 o'clock in the morning.
Getting on a train, right?
First I had to get on a bus.
The
bus took me to the train. The train took me from Coney Island to 125th Street. Then from there, I had to walk up half a mile up a hill.
Right.
It took between 2 and 2.5 hours one way. The bell would ring at the end of the class. I shot out of there, went back to the train, went back to home. I don't think I spent more than an hour during my whole time there that I went to campus to participate in any of the campus activities. I wanted to get there, do my thing, go to the library or whatever, and go home.
Right. Well, I was lucky that my mother was very liberal, and I was a hitchhiker.
No.
And I would go to my corner in Canarsie, Seaview and 93rd, and I hitched literally to Remsen Avenue and Flatlands, and then I caught a bus.
Yeah.
Or else I would have to wait for that bus, which was a 45-minute wait for the Seaview Avenue bus. Yeah. And I always got picked up. It was one of those things. People knew to pick up hitchhikers because that's how bad the bus route was. And sometimes I'd get lucky and they were on their way to Flatbush Avenue, and then I'd have to walk a half mile or whatever, but that was few and far between.
Yeah, I feel like saying those were the days, my friend.
Whoa, people don't hitchhike anymore. It's something like a vagabond used to do.
It's too dangerous.
I guess, but at that time, I didn't even think of it. I was 18, 19, and people picked you up. If you had a school bag on your shoulder or something, another kid would have picked you up if they were going that way. But hitchhiking was a way of traveling back in the 60s, probably 50s and 60s.
Well, I used to hitchhike when I first got out to California in the late 70s.
Oh, did you?
Yeah. Until I found out how dangerous it was. And then I didn't have a car, so I used to work downtown. I lived in Hollywood. So I would take a bus home at about 2 o'clock in the morning. And I go down Sunset Boulevard and I see all these young kids hitchhiking. And they had a costume. They had like the cut, it's a nice night. So they had the cut off jeans.
Yeah.
But they have a t-shirt in their back pocket. And they were hitchhiking. And then I found out why. They were male prostitutes. And they were looking for these rich guys from Beverly Hills to pick them up and do whatever they do. And
I've heard those stories.
Yeah, and some of them, which I found out, some of these guys would almost like adopt them and keep them in the house for a few months until they tired of them.
So let me talk to you a little bit about something that we did some research on uh, last couple of years, and that is how to reduce poverty in a certain sector. And that sector are young women. And the problem that we ascertained in our research was it's going to sound horrible, but over 45% of all children being born to women under 30 are being born in single parent households.
Hmm.
That is so difficult for someone like me that is spending his life trying to uplift people from poverty. And there's nothing that causes, it's almost like Sisyphus trying to push that boulder up and the boulder comes back down again.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing worse than having to have women and it's a lot of young girls that are having kids and having to raise them on either on their own or having the burden of their parents, grandparents, having to help raise the kid. And the girl turns out not to be able to go to school at certain times, have to work shifts of hours so that she could make do. In many instances, the father of the child is not involved, which is horrible, but there are instances where they are. I'm not going to say everything, but that number is a huge number. And when you break it down, 72% of all Black children, women under 30, are born in single parent households. 56% of all Hispanic families born in single parent households, women under 30. And 36% of all in white families, single parent households. So pretty much it's running the gamut of where we see the most poverty.
Now, are these percentages valid today?
Oh, as of 3 years ago.
3 years ago.
When we started doing that, we have written papers and pieces, which I'll send you one on exactly how this comes out. But this is what I would like to see happen. I would like to see organizations, women's organizations, and I'm not going to say Black Lives Matters organizations or any other, but I'm going to pick an organization that women look up to. And you know what that organization is? The WNBA. The WNBA has a microphone, a mouthpiece, respect. They're up on pedestals. I would love to see the WNBA and the NBA, if possible, come out and talk about why there should not be single parent households raising children. And I am going to write a letter to the WNBA to see if there's any interest in talking about this as an agenda narrative item, because they could have such a huge difference in the lives of these kids. And I would love to see it happen. I'm a believer, by the way, in birth control. I would love to see every high school offer the morning after pill. So if a girl has sex and she's 15, 16, 17, she doesn't have to ask anyone anywhere. She goes to a guidance counselor or she goes to the school nurse, and the morning after pill can be taken. And if she is pregnant, the pregnancy will never develop because the egg will not stick to the womb. And these pills are available in every country in the world. And I would love to see them available in every middle school and high school so that a child can make that choice without having to go through a pregnancy.
Yeah. Now, aside from the ethnic percentages, what did this have to do with number one, education?
Runs the gamut. Sex, they're having sex at every age.
Oh, right. But I'm talking about single parenthood. Is that more prevalent in the uneducated or the educated?
No, it runs the gamut of everyone. Now, certain groups that are affluent, Black and white, will arrange for that child to have a termination of the pregnancy. But there are many places that are religious, and all religions, that will encourage the child to carry the child full term. So you have support systems that are out there from a religious vantage point that are not going to encourage the termination. But in the same sense, they also don't place the child. If you don't want to raise a child, they are not helping you to place it into a home where people may have fertility issues so that they can have a child.
Right.
They're not doing that. They're not doing that either.
Right. Which I would thought, well, like especially I'm more familiar with the Catholic Church, who's really, vocally anti abortion or anti-sex. But the thing is, once a child is born, they don't help support it at all.
Absolutely not. And that's where we come in as an anti-poverty organization, trying to feed these kids, trying to make them live another day. I can't change the past, obviously, but I could increase knowledge of the present and the future by having things like these IU 486, which is the name of this morning after pill, and having it available for everyone that wants it, and having it available not as a stigma. Oh, I had unprotected sex, I'm going to take a 486. I won't have to think about it. And that is the beauty of this pill, that you're able to take it after you've had relations and you will not get pregnant. And that is the simplest way of dealing with this to reduce the risk of poverty in these cohorts.
Yeah. How soon after having sex can you take the pill?
3 days.
3 days? So in actuality, you don't know whether you're pregnant or not, so there's no stigma.
Absolutely. Well, you've had sex, you may think about it, but there's no stigma of you having a child forming because
terminated, right.
the egg has not stuck to the wall of the uterus because of the chemical activities of 486.
Which I, especially, again, I'm more familiar with religious groups. They, number one, are against abortion, but number two, they're against sex education.
Well, I've heard all means, and having raised 5 children and 3 daughters, I was very glad that they all received sex ed in school, and from Diane and I, and basically we'll never tell them not to have sex. That ship has sailed with any kid, in our day and age. They're going to do what they do. And I am not one to talk about ethics or morality. Those should not be involved with sex. It's a natural occurring urge that you have, and a lot of people can't get past that urge, and they have sex. It's not right or wrong. The word right or wrong should have no validity in talking about sexual relations. It should.
I think I took a course at CCNY, it's called Sex in the Family. And they were talking, I believe, the belief was Tahitian. And there, women or girls would have sex because they felt like it. They got to a certain age and,
they had the urge.
Yeah. They had sex. If they became pregnant, what happened is that the family unit was the mother, the child, and the mother's brother would take responsibility for the child. So there wasn't any, single parent homes, unless of course you had no brother, but basically one of the other males would take over. So that was a family unit. It wasn't, gee, you have to get married and you have to, birth was a gift of God. The baby was the gift of God.
How important is it to have both a male and female in the house to raise a child?
Right.
That is what's missing in our culture at this point.
Right. Well, that's a form of marriage. It's
Right.
You didn't need the male being the father, but he was in the house, and that was a family unit.
Well, in Judaism, as you may know, if the husband passes away, the husband's brother is responsible to raise the child and to take care of the mother of the child. And that's why many years ago, and it was a medical reason, men had more than one wife, because many passed in childbirth in those years. And you had to have more women to help raise the children.
But you mean many wives at the same time?
Yes.
Yes. I didn't know.
Oh, yes. It wasn't until about 1,200 years ago that Jews went away from having 2, 3, 4 wives. Until then, there was always multiple wives in Jewish households.
I wonder whether that's why religious Jews are always in the temple, because they want to get out of the house with 4 wives.
It could very well be.
I mean, I can't see that. I mean, I have one wife who I love, but I can't imagine having 2 or 3.
It was part of our culture, and things obviously changed. In many ways, in our culture, it wasn't until 200 years ago that we even had last names. Your name was your name and the name of your father.
Yeah, son of.
And it wasn't a last name involved until you lived in some cultures that needed it for tax purposes, for work purposes, to have people that were separated, that had the same names. They had to change it, so they had to add a last name. But it was very recent that we have 2 names.
Yeah, well, if I guess the stories are correct, when the immigrants came over, the turn of the last century, 1900s, the names that they were given, almost because they didn't understand English, was almost like their profession. Like also, Snyder was a tailor, Schneider, or a smith.
A Schneider's a cutter in German. Now, my wife's family came from an area that was the River Swire, Swire. And my father-in-law's family's name, when they came here, were Swirsky. And he had a brother who changed their name to Swertel. But it was all because they came from the area near the River Swire.
Sure.
My grandmother, she should rest in peace, came from Austria. And she came from a town called Wien, which we call Vienna. Whoever came from Wien were called Wieners. So the name Wiener or Wiener are people that were from Vienna. And that's so many names have that kind. My name means almond tree. Maybe they lived near an almond tree at that time. Mandelbaum. Tannenbaum is a Christmas tree. Applebaum is a apple tree. Yeah. So all Baums probably were from the groves that their homes could have been.
Well, when you say Mandelbaum, I think of a mandel bread.
Right, almond bread, made from the
right. I love that.
Look, mandel bread. Actually, it's very funny because we had our veteran farmers market today, and one of our friends, Dominic, who comes, he's going to be 90 this year. He has a 94-year-old cousin. And we help feed her with food that he takes. She baked Irish soda bread because St. Patrick's Day is Thursday. So she brought this fabulous Irish soda bread, which we cut up, and he brought butter and cream cheese, and it was enough for 20 people. And we had just a great piece of bread today.
Yeah, March 17th, it's the anniversary of my bar mitzvah.
Oh,
my mitzvah on St. Patrick's Day, so I wore a green cummerbund and a green tie. So I always had an affinity for the Irish since then.
Well, it's interesting because tomorrow night is Purim.
Yeah,
and I always have this discussion. One of the couples that come to the farmers market, he is a retired chaplain. He was a rabbi, Rabbi Sampson, and we call him Rabbi Ben. And his wife is a Rebbitzin. So the last couple of weeks, she's been talking how they have a large family, have over 30 immediate family between children, grandchildren, great grandchildren. And she's been cooking now for 2 weeks. And she said, Syd, I'm bringing you my favorite bakery item that I bake, Hamantashen. Mm-hmm. And she says, what do you like? And I said, I love mun, which is poppy seed. Oh, I don't make poppy seed. I said, well, you asked me. Well, sure enough, a neighbor of hers makes poppy. So I'm getting some poppy mun hamantashen for tomorrow. And the bakery that I pick up from every morning, they make a fabulous mun hamantashen. I can't wait to get one tomorrow.
Yeah, the big thing that I miss, I'm living in California now, but I'm originally from Brooklyn. And, in the old days, what happened on any of the Jewish holidays, the whole families would get together. And most of them, they were second generation, but they all lived around the same area in Brooklyn. Maybe, the brothers and sisters and aunts and uncles maybe lived like 5 miles apart,
right?
The most. And during the holidays, somebody cooked a meal. Now that I'm in California and, everybody's moved. The only way I keep in contact with family is by Facebook.
Wow.
So there is, especially like, on the major holidays that we celebrate. Purim was, it was okay, but it was a festive. But on Passover, there was always the Seders that we went to. On the New Year, Rosh Hashanah, there was always a family meal. Yom Kippur, not really. I mean, basically, it was the family unit stayed together.
Yeah, there was pretty much dairy we had to end the fast with.
Well, the end of the fast, I don't know how I got the costume. It was schnapps. I took the first one was a shot of scotch, was to break the fast every time.
Wow. I would have a piece of bagel with cream cheese.
Yeah, but it was in the temples now they give you a challah.
So our temple is opening for the first time on Thursday. Tomorrow night we're having the Megillah reading, not just on Zoom, but you could attend the temple and participate that way. So I'm excited to go back. Yeah. I've been davening on Zoom, and 2 years is a long time.
Yeah, I really have not gone to temple in years. I mean, maybe on occasion, but I'm not a member of any group. But which I find, in order to go to the holidays again, and I see why, you have to pay an awful lot of money.
Well, we pay $2,000 a year in dues, and that includes tickets for the holidays. But I believe that as a temple member, I'm keeping our temple alive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I feel that's well worth for me.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, when I was a member of the temple when my sons were bar mitzvahed, and they would go to Hebrew school, for 3-4 years before, and probably like about 2-3 years afterwards, they would, we'd be member of temple because we'd go to, the different occasions. But then it's, on most of the things when they, aside from social events, on the religious events, I'm iconoclastic. I don't necessarily believe what the temple believes in. Sometimes I question whether there's a God, whether I believe in it or not. And I think that a religion separates people more than unites people.
Right. That is absolutely true.
And then the only one that I cared about, what I thought was good, was the Universalist. I think it's Universalist Church. Where but believe when you went to the temple, and I was a member of one in Manhattan on 86th Street in Central Park West, and they didn't talk about God necessarily and what God could do. They talk about what you could do as a Jew, how as a Jewish person you could make the world better. And it's like what you're doing, feeding the poor, being involved in what's happening. They didn't go and say, God, how great you are, how merciful you are. And they did it in English. They didn't do it in Hebrew.
Right.
And so I understood what was happening, what they said, and I understood as an individual how I could help, help out society or the world in general. Not necessarily that I would thank God for how great God is, because I don't, as we talked about, I don't understand if there's a God, why there's a Holocaust, why there is poverty.
All fair questions.
I mean, if God is omnipotent, I mean, he could cure all this. And I know that free will, did God give people free will, or how come he doesn't control people?
Great questions.
Anyway, would you realize on that question our half hour is up?
Well, that was pretty quick. I will send you the case study we did on trying to reduce poverty by reducing single parent households.
Right. We still have to talk. That's a good thing. We still have to talk about that. We really into the.
You'll take a look at the research that we did, and it's something I believe in, and I am going to write to the WNBA to see if there's anyone that is willing. And it'll be difficult because so many kids come from single parent households that they don't see themselves. They're too close to seeing that it's bad. Their mom survived and here they are, and they're great people. Their mom's great. But is that how you want to have your child raised?
Right.
And that's the question. To be continued.
To be continued. Anyway, have a great Purim.
Thank you. And again, rock and wrap it up. 1-877-691-FOOD or rockandwrapitup.org. Come visit us, come volunteer, make a donation, help us continue our vital work, and just be involved in what we do.
Right. And tell all your friends about Syd Malcolm to listen to us, to find out more of what we're doing.
That'd be great.
And remember, it's malcolmpresents.com.
You got it. Thank you, Malcolm.
Next week. Okay, bye.